Welcome back. This tutorial is going to be about how to use Cyborg Elements 1.0 inside of Adobe After Effects. When you first open up Cyborg Elements 1.0, the After Effects file, you are going to be met with a quick little table of contents. It's going to just be one of these comps up here that's just going to outline all of the things that are in the file. As you can see, the first one is Controllable Elements Effects. And then it says the essentials. Each comp in this folder has layers that you can customize to your liking. Controllable Elements over here is a folder. And inside of that folder, it has a few of the different comps that you can use. The pre-animated elements are things for if you just don't really have the time to put together your own custom ones and changing the lengths of bars and whatnot. You can just go to the pre-animated elements and drag and drop them into your comps within Adobe After Effects. And then the futuristic UI presets is another folder of comps. All the way down here, folder 3, where you just have some pre-animated heads-up displays, or rather just the templates that are not updated inside of there. 4, animated HUD presets is the one that is animated. It's just these, but they are actually moving. And then transition effects down here. These are just some effects that I was testing out with when I was developing this, and I just kind of wanted to add something in there that may be helpful for people who are looking for that sorts of thing. I know that you guys can get transition effects from like a million different places on the internet, so use them or don't. No offense to me whatsoever. So I just wanted to put that in there. It's just something that you can maybe put as your blending comps on the timeline. Maybe you can export them and use them in your editors of choice, like Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, whatever it is that you decide to use. It's more so like a bonus comp folder to me in my eyes as a person who made it. The one that's not on the table of contents is here. Custom 001, your experiments here. And these are just comps that are essentially empty, except for the first one, I think, is an example comp, where you can just go here to sort of make your own animations and kind of see how they work. As you can see, this experiment comp 1 already has one in there, and then it has a little message that says drag and drop any of the pre-animated elements from the comp folder 02 into the project bin. If you open up number 2, you can see that it's empty. You can just turn this text layer off or delete it if you want to. These are the areas where you can mess up and you should be okay. I'm gonna scroll all the way back here and close that. So now I'm inside of the comp called Tutorial The Basics. So this is just gonna walk you through some of the fundamentals of controlling these elements. So the solo bar is one that we have down here. And it basically says you can click the glowing line below or just select the layer down here that says solo bar. And then you can go to the effect controls up here. And this is where you're going to be able to control the length of this slider. Now this bounding box or line is kind of in my way, so I'm just going to turn that off temporarily just for your visibility. And you can see that you can pretty much change the length of that at any moment, however you want, from 0 to 100. One warning is that it can go past 100, and obviously it's not going to go past that line here, but you're just going to have a number that doesn't do anything right there if you go past that. These project settings are typically in UHD 4K. You can feel free to change that if you want, but you probably will have to adjust your comps a little bit there. So that's just one where you can practice with adjusting the length, adjusting the weight, and kind of see how these work out and how you can flesh them out to become really detailed UI compositions. Same thing with the bar glow here, where you can kind of control the intensity of that as you please. Pretty simple settings, pretty straightforward, along with choosing the color of these as well. So you'll see a group of effects tiled bar slider, bar weight, bar glow, bar color. Pretty self-explanatory, as I also just explained it, but those are the things that you'll typically see inside of the effects controls whenever you click an element that looks like this, or a bit more of a advanced one like this over here. So this is what I typically call a ring loader inside of Cyborg Elements. You'll see a bunch of these being used over and over again. And some of its components share the same properties as the solo bar. So we're going to go ahead and explore the effects of the ring loader over here. As you can see, it is composed of a couple different layers there, but I'll just go to ring, and then you can see that taking the slider down to 0, it can go past 0 to into the negatives, but you can see how you can control that. I'm just going to take this and animate it a little bit just to give you a little idea of how that can be used. So I'll make it something that's about half a second, and I'll make it slide all the way to 100. If you hit U, the letter U on your keyboard, it'll bring up your keyframes for whatever you have them assigned to in your effects. And I can see that this keyframe from here to here goes just like that. Now it stops a little rough. One little thing that I like to teach people who are kind of new to After Effects is that you can actually change the smoothness of keyframes and how they operate. You can do that in 2 different ways. You can right click these and go down to Keyframe Assistant. The only way you're going to see this in this drop down menu is if you actually have the keyframe selected and you right click while you're on the keyframe, go down to Keyframe Assistant, and then you can choose one of 3 of these. Sometimes more options are there, but I'm going to say Easy Ease in. And then right here, I'm going to right click, go down to Keyframe Assistant, and I'm just going to say Easy Ease. Pay attention to the shortcuts that are, or the hotkeys that are always going to be off to the right hand side of these. It will do you very well to be able to do that or commit those to memory in After Effects. So now when I play this animation, it's very slightly smoother. Now, what I was talking about in the graph editor, if you want to get, really detailed with it, is click this graph editor icon right here. Then it will show you sort of the ramp of the animation and, if it's smooth or not. I could select these 2 points, which represents the 2 keyframes, and kind of push them out a little bit more and say, hey, I want this to last about a second. And then I can also control these Bezier curves here and say, all right, I want this to be a little bit of a smoother ramp. So that I can control these things. You also have these buttons over here for easy easing and easy easing in, etc. So now if I'll just play it inside of the graph editor. You have a slightly smoother end to the animation there. It takes a little time to play with that to really get the hang of it, but once you do, you'll be able to make some really, really fluid animations that you're actually really happy with. So I'm going to move on really quick to the dashes. You can see that this one has some slightly different settings, and I even toggle the bar glow off. That's totally up to you for stylistic choices. You can adjust the slider and bar rotation and whatnot. Now, one thing about the dashed circles is that the rotation is kind of hard to see when you're this far away, but maybe when you're closer up to it, you can see it like so. It works best, the rotation that is, if you don't have it at 100% for the bar length. Because if you do, then I'll show you it's just going to look like not much is happening. See, you can kind of see it moving, but is it exciting? Not really. Okay. So that's just a basic walkthrough of the tutorial that you'll see when you first open the comp, along with this table of contents. Another thing about this table of contents is just a quick little shout out where it's like, hey, if you liked this, then rate it. Give me a shout out on social media. I try to keep the same handle on all my channels and whatnot, and I'd love to see what you all are doing with Cyborg Elements as a tool. The reason why I built Cyborg Elements is to try to help people save time when they're making these sort of sci-fi related short films, or even, reels or TikToks, whatever. I know that the internet is an ever evolving place, especially when it comes to art, when it comes to content. So I just wanted to put something out there that kind of helps sci-fi related art be a bit more accessible, especially for people who just don't know how to do all these things. That's why I have a lot of different pre-made elements inside of here, so that you can just drag them onto a canvas. They are animated already, and you can just put together your own little patterns with them. There are thousands of different combinations that you can make with these comps. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one of these futuristic UI presets. I'm just going to reduce the graphics to half and then move that off there. So Control Shift H on Windows will get those bounding boxes out of your way as a shortcut. Command Shift H on a Mac. But just wanted to kind of show how these things work. So if you wanted to experiment with this and animate it in your own special order or your own kind of way, you could. If you wanted to take certain things out and kind of test them in the different ways that they looked, you could do that. I would definitely recommend, if you are going to experiment with this, if you are going to experiment with this, to just duplicate this. So click this comp, go up here to edit, and then go to duplicate, or as you can see on a PC, you hit Control D or Command D on a Mac. So since these are already numbered, it's just going to give you HUD template 007. And you can actually drag that down here to your customs, where you're just going to start experimenting with this thing if you are going to make changes. As you can see, I've tried my best to make these comps color coded. So the controllable ones where it's just you're starting from scratch, like this is a better example, like here, it's not animated or anything. Those are pink. The pre-animated elements that you can drag and drop, there are 67 of these comps right here. Those are like an indigo. In the futuristic UI presets, the ones that aren't animated, but they are a HUD template, those are like a aqua color. The animated HUD presets are orange. The transition effects are green comps in color. And then the experiments are just purple. So this one is looking a little out of place right now, but I just wanted to show you that as an example. This here in the controllable elements effects is the big dashed ring, which is this one here. And that's just going to basically give you a starter tool, basically. So if you want to be able to animate this in a certain kind of way, you can do that. And I also open this up so that you can actually see the contents if you wanted to change them a little bit. I try my best to make sure I labeled these little sections so that you can kind of drop them down. Let me see. This one is just controlling the size of the ring there. The stroke, you can go down here and adjust these dashes a little bit. You see they're getting a little thicker there. I can increase the gap of the dashes. In newer versions of After Effects, you have a taper that you can play with on these, where you can get some really interesting results. That's just how that works. I just wanted to show that inside of these little drop down arrows here, that you can change it even more than just going into the effect controls if you want. Slider should work the same way, where you can kind of make sort of like a loading animation with it. You can change the glow, you can change the color if you want into something a little bit more to your liking. The circle loader is one that's a little bit more basic. It just has a counter in there that goes all the way up to 100. It's just, as you can see, the dashed ring loader, a regular ring, another ring in there, and then the other thing is just kind of like the plate, which is here. It's just a shape layer, really, that kind of adds to the, I don't know, the texture, I guess, or the depth of the shape that you have here. One other thing that you'll notice inside of this comp is that you actually have a controller, which is this, the 3D ring rotator effects layer. This is just a null object. If you turn it on, you'll see that it's a null, but I like to have it out of the way because since all of these elements are 3D, that's how they're rendered, you can control this from the effects window here. So you can control the angle there, and it's just going to put the object at that angle in front of the actual camera. And the camera is locked in this comp, so if you start messing with it, funny things might happen. But I thought that it would be a little bit easier for you to be able to control this type of thing from a sort of like a remote control, which is the purpose of the null layer. And then if you don't like what you did, you just reset all of these. No biggie. So that's the basis of how to use these elements inside of Adobe After Effects. One last thing I do want to show you is how you can really just start from scratch in here. So I'm going to go down to the experiment comps. I'm going to open up experiment comp 2, get this text layer out of my way, and then I'm just going to drag and drop some of these inside of here. So I'll put that one there. And a lot of these here in the pre-animated elements are obviously animated, and a lot of them start from nothing. So you might have to fast forward a little bit on your timeline, drag the playhead up to maybe at least a second, and then position these where you want them to be. I'm just gonna drag these in at random for the sake of time. And I'll probably just speed this part of the video up so that you don't have to watch me do this. Okay, so I think that's a pretty decent example of just what you can pull together. The speed just depends on what it is you're looking for in a user interface. For a futuristic one, a lot of it is also just kind of having an eye for design, an eye for timing. But you could honestly pull off something really cool just by playing around inside of this. So don't be afraid to just, get scrappy with it and, try to make something that your imagination can see. Because really the limit to Cyborg Elements is just your imagination. Once again, I built this as a tool so that you can kind of save time on this kind of stuff, because even as the person who animated every last one of these elements on my own, it took quite a bit. And I can only imagine, having a sci-fi film that I had to make where I wanted to have some kind of futuristic monitors in the background or something, or a gadget with some futuristic user interface on it, how much longer it would take me if I hadn't made this tool with all of these sort of presets and all these pre-animated elements and components. So as I always say, I hope that you enjoy using it as much as I did making it, because it was a lot of fun to make this, and it's a lot of fun to come up with these different compositions using different colors and experimenting with different layouts. It's my hope and my goal to improve this even more in the future, to expand it even more in the future, and make it even more useful for all of you. So thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful. If you end up having any questions, just shoot me one, either through social media, maybe through email, or even on the Gumroad page if it's possible to do that on there. And I'd love to help out. So I'll see you guys next time. This has been a introductory tutorial on how to use Cyborg Elements 1.0 inside of Adobe After Effects.